We're out in the rainwater butt. I think that I fixed the shaft so that it can't come off again. I just used the existing rubber tube, but then I've covered that with heat shrink tubing and shrunk it down over quite a long length of the shaft, so it shouldn't come off. So I've tethered the front of the boat and we'll give it a try. Well, it has slipped a bit. It won't be able to come all the way off because it can't go through the tube anymore, but that's slipped about ½ an inch. Try and do this in macro mode so you can see what I'm trying to do. A pointy stick in there. Okay, down here is the propeller shaft, the extension. Up here the silver bit is the motor shaft. Then we've got a piece of black rubber tubing that links the propeller shaft to the motor shaft, and at the moment it keeps sliding out. So from about that point there to about, well, must be about that point there, so midpoint, that's the amount that's on the propeller shaft, the back piece, and that's sliding out. Now what I tried to do to stop it sliding off was put some heat shrink tubing over it. Now I only put the heat shrink tubing over the shaft there, and then over the rubber bit up to that point there. What I should have done was gone all the way over the end, because the heat shrink tubing is coming off. If I pull the shaft now, there you go. So you can now see the rubber tubing, and it's quite a hard push, but when I put the motor in reverse, the amount of pull that we're getting from the propeller in the water is enough to pull that off. Now what I should have done, with hindsight, was taking that heat shrink tubing all the way over the front of the pipe, front of the rubber tube. Get my pointer in there again. Should have got it right over to there, because that portion of the rubberized tubing is staying on the motor shaft, but it's loose on the propeller shaft, probably because they're slightly different sizes. The propeller shaft is a bicycle spoke, and it's a slightly thinner diameter than the bit on the motor shaft. So what I'm going to do now is put another bit of heat shrink tubing on and make it go right the way over and right up to the shaft there, and see if that will hold it in place. I don't think you'll be able to see this at all. I've put one layer on it. I'll just heat up with my soldering iron to shrink down, and then you might just be able to see disappearing from sight is a thicker piece of heat shrink tubing. I'll then slide up over it to go over the whole lot. So that I end up with several thicknesses. The smoke that's coming off is where I'm touching the foam, which I don't want to do, but I can't avoid it in this tight area. can't take the motor out because I've hot glued it in place. Give that a second to cool down, and I'll slide up the next layer. If I slide it up too quickly, it'll start shrinking down before I'm able to work on it. Alright, it's a significantly thicker piece. Hopefully that's light enough and in focus so you can see the heat shrink tubing is going right up the shaft and covering that rubber joiner. So we'll see. Back out in the water butt in the garden. Let's see if we can make that prop come loose again. Looks like it's holding. Oop. Got the camera wet. Stand back a bit. Well, looks like it's holding. Yep, still there. So next test is back out on the boating lake.